What's going on, guys? It's Cimo. So last week we actually had the OCG's July 1st ban list come out, and as you guys know, I like to discuss the OCG's ban list because even though our formats are different, it is interesting to kind of look into the future to see what could potentially get hit here in the TCG, because sometimes we do mimic them in a lot of ways, and so that kind of just leads to a little bit of foreshadowing for what might be to come for our given format. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. Kicking things off right away with the first forbidden card, Nightmare Mermaid. Now, the thing is, Orcust is the strongest deck currently in the OCG, so that is something that's a little bit different compared to us here in the TCG, where I would argue that while Orcust is like tier 1, Salamangreat's probably the better deck, but Orcust is still a very strong competitor, and Nightmare Mermaid getting banned is very significant because that means that pretty much cuts off the entire combo. I think there's like weird ways to like kind of still do Orcust combos, but like Nightmare Mermaid was kind of like the double helix, let's say, if we're gonna like compare it to like Spiral, of getting into your main combo. So without that, you kind of lose that generic access to the Orcust play, and I think that significantly hurts the deck a lot. Like I said, I don't think it gets to the point of like unplayability. There's still like ways with like the scrap engine, I believe, to do it, but I don't know if that's consistent. But Orcust took a pretty big hit on this list. And then the next card coming up here is Gandora X, the Dragon of Demolition. This is just an FTK card, so they just took this out of the game. This is something that the TCG hasn't had to worry about too much. We've kind of dealt with the majority of the cards, although there was a like World Chalice FTK version that we've seen before. It was actually at the Pro Play Tour event that was back in Fort Worth not too long ago. So that was pretty neat, but then we got a ban list and it kind of like took away the cards that made that combo pretty viable. But this is a card that should just go because any card that enables FTKs is something we really shouldn't have to worry about. Now moving on to the limited cards, the first big card here is Salamangreat Gazelle. Now again, Salamangreat was probably like the second best deck in the OCG, so seeing Gazelle go to 1 is very significant. Gazelle is like the heart and soul of this deck. I mean, as you guys know, like if you draw Gazelle, you're probably in pretty good shape, and with Gazelle going to 1, sure, you've got 3 copies of Circle, and sure, you've got like 3 copies of Signet Mining, but like losing the other 2 copies of Gazelle really hurts the consistency of your deck because now you just have less access to get to the Gazelle, and those other cards can be just hit by hand traps. So thing is, 1 Gazelle really hurts the deck. Does it make the deck unplayable? No, I don't think so. I think the deck's still definitely playable, but it definitely hinders the deck's consistency. Moving on, we have Thunder Dragon Colossus going to 1. This is something that I don't think matters all that much because, okay, so for the OCG, I don't exactly know how their Thunder builds are looking because keep in mind, they do not yet have the dangers. However, here in the TCG, most of the Thunder Dragon danger decks only play like 1 Colossus, maybe 2 in some cases, but typically they only play like 1 for the most part. If they can summon the second one, like, yeah, that's pretty cool, but 1 is typically like what's on the standard board. I don't really think that does a whole lot. That kind of hurts like pure Thunder Dragon actually more so than it hurts Danger Thunder Dragon, which is kind of weird, but at the same time, I guess it kind of just helps put the top decks in check. I guess if they already hit Orcust and Salamangreat, I guess it makes sense for them to hit Thunder Dragon, not to mention it's a floodgate and it's a very oppressive one at that, so I don't really mind that they hit Thunder Dragon Colossus. I was about to call it Super Bolt by its OCG name. And also in tandem with that, Thunder Dragonhawk going to 1 as well. This is a bit of an odd one because, again, Thunder Dragonhawk is one that isn't exactly played like too much. Like, yeah, in the pure Thunder Dragon deck, you're going to play 3 of it, and it's good for recursion, but in the Danger Thunder Dragon deck here in the TCG, you're only running like 1 of that card anyway, so having it go to 1 doesn't hurt that deck. So that's one of the very big differences between the OCG and the TCG formats, that if they were to go this route, it wouldn't really hurt the Danger deck all too much. That's more just aiming hits at pure Thunder Dragon, which the OCG does currently have in their metagame. Next up is Lady Debug. This is obviously, again, a hit at Salamangreat. They had it at 3 before, which is pretty crazy, and it was one of the reasons why it was still the best deck. But as you guys have seen, we have one Lady Debug here, and Salamangreat is still like the best deck. Now, we still have 3 Gazelle, to be fair, so it'll be very interesting to see how Salamangreat does with only 1 Debug and 1 Gazelle, but it's still a very significant consistency hit, just losing more access to get to that Gazelle. Metaverse is another card that's very, very interesting because this card is seeing tons of play due in part to the Mystic Mine, and now with Metaverse going to 1, a lot of these decks that were using Metaverse to access it, like Mystic Mine Burn, even the trap decks like Altergeist, Paleozoic, which have been seeing meta relevance in the OCG and even in the TCG, Metaverse going to 1 is a very significant hit for those lower tier decks. The higher tier decks that were playing Mystic Mine weren't playing Metaverse. I guess Sky Striker was to an extent, so I guess that's like another indirect hit as well, but this is an aim at the lower tier decks, but more particularly Mystic Mine, which I think any hit to Mystic Mine is perfectly okay. I think that does it for the limiteds. Now, moving on to semi-limits, we have ABC Dragon Buster, which ABC hasn't been doing too much as of late. I believe Dragon Buster is still at 3 here in the TCG, and the deck does absolutely nothing, so that's something. I remember ABC was crazy in Japan by comparison, so that's something going to 2. I don't think it's going to change too much. Then we have Spiral Quick Fix, which Quick Fix going to 2, it's a boost to Spiral, but I don't think we're going to be having it anywhere near like the tier 0 Spiral that we basically had not too long ago. Dark Arm Dragon going to 2 is yeah, I mean, it's not 2007 anymore, but Dark Arm's still a really powerful card for what it's worth, but Destruction ain't what it used to be, so I could kind of see this happening, but it's just one of those cards that, because I played back in the day, I have like trauma from playing against it, so, but I think it's probably fine. I don't really think it's going to cause too much damage. Dark Refere at 2 is a kind of an interesting one, because again, it kind of plays in tandem with Orcust, but again, because Nightmare Mermaid is like hit, like, does Dark Refere being at 2 really matter? I don't think so. Like, I don't really see there's really much point for a card like that to stay limited with Orcust. Kind of just basically, I don't want to say unplayable, but just very difficult to play now. They don't even have danger, so it's much more difficult for them to utilize it. Yeah, they have Destrudo, but then again, Dark Refere going to 2 I think is fine. Dino Wrestler Pankratz going to 2, though, is very fascinating because Pankratz is a card that is really only seeing play in the side deck for the most part. You might main deck it if you're playing like Dinosaurs or Rogue, but for the most part, it's a side deck staple. But now that it's at 2, again, I'm not personally a fan of the semi-limited list, but Pankratz going to 2 is, you know, it's a card that everyone kind of just played at 3 in the side deck because it's that strong, and people are still going to play 2 copies. It's kind of like when they moved Called by the Grave to 2, it didn't really do anything. It's just going to be a card that people just play 2, now they just have an extra side deck slot to play something else. So, again, this is kind of why I'm not a fan of the semi-limited list, because it doesn't really do anything. I feel like if a card's at 2, it might as well go to 3, except for like a very, very small few exceptions, like, you know, Destiny Hero Malicious, for instance. Cards that like basically replace themselves in the same copy, like those are the only exceptions I feel like to that rule. Now we have TG Hyper Librarian. I think we have 3 Librarian here in the TCG. I could be completely wrong, but I don't really see that card being a problem whatsoever. Cyber Stein going to 2. Will that really make a difference? Like, yeah, it's kind of a degenerate card. Yeah, it can like kind of facilitate some FTKs, but people aren't really playing it too much, to be perfectly honest. Again, they don't have dangers, so like maybe someone's gonna find some way to make some danger FTK more consistent, but for the most part, the card really hasn't seen like any play outside of like very few like niche instances where people like drop Exterio. Like, I don't really think it's that big a deal. Trishula going to 2 is a card that like, again, it's kind of like Dark Arm Dragon, where it's just like, it's kind of scary, like thinking about it from the past, but like now I don't really think it would do much. Not really many decks can facilitate a Trish play, and there's so many ways to stop it that it's like, it's not really like worth the investment. It's kind of cool if you play a deck that can summon Trish, but I don't really think 2 Trish is really going to do anything. It's kind of cool to see it go to 2 though. Necros Cycle is a pretty neat one. Again, like, why? Like, it's just the semi-limited list is just so weird to me. Mystic Mine going to 2 though is like, I guess okay, it's less copies of the card, but again, decks that are playing Mystic Mine, you still have the one Metaverse too, which I guess that's a pretty big hit, but like, people are still going to play Mystic Mine if they can facilitate it. Like, Sky Striker is probably going to still want to play Mystic Mine to slow down the other decks. You know, the rogue decks like Altergeist and Paleozoic are probably still want to play Mystic Mine because it slows down the other decks to help them play their game. I don't really think putting this card to 2 does anything. Yes, it lowers the consistency of it, but like the decks that want to play it are probably still going to play it, so I really don't think it accomplishes a lot. I feel like they have to hit it to 1 and like ban Metaverse, or just ban it and keep Metaverse at 3, because at that point there's really no point to keep Metaverse at 1. Now for the unlimits. Man, this is pretty cool. We have Stratos going to 3. I think that is absolutely incredible that we get to see that. Again, it's not for us personally, but again, I think it'd be cool if Stratos did go to 3 just because, you know, it's Heroes. Everyone loves Stratos. Maybe not back in the day, but it's something that hasn't done it's done nothing. Like, just put it to 3. That would be cool. Dynamite Knight going to 3 is a bit interesting, and the reason I say that is because while in the OCG, True Draco hasn't seen too much success, here in the TCG, Draco's actually like pretty good, and Dynamite Knight going to 3 would be a nice boost to that deck. I've talked about it before. It's kind of like this, it goes between like being like this tier 2-ish deck and then like Rogue, because like all of a sudden it's good and then like people start countering it and then it sucks again. But 3 Dynamite Knight would actually be pretty sick, because Dynamite Knight is basically the best card in that deck, and I think that would be a very good boost without like making the deck overpowered. I think that'd be perfectly okay. I know they hit a lot of Draco in the OCG. Toad going to 3 is pretty significant. I believe they had Toad at 1 previously, might have been 2, I'm not sure, but it was previously hit somewhere, and yeah, they have 3 Toad. We have 3 Toad here in the TCG, and obviously it does nothing unless you're playing like Paleo, but then again, it's a pretty cool card, so like, you know, let them have it, whatever. Spellbook of Knowledge, I believe, was also previously hit somewhere, but again, that's a card that really does nothing, so I think that's perfectly fine to come off the list. Then Solemn Judgment is crazy, because now in the OCG, I believe they have like so many copies of Solemn, just anything, it's kind of ridiculous. 3 Solemn Judgment, like we're back in like the old days of being able to like judgment, and again, like counter traps are a bit slow nowadays, but if you're playing a trap heavy deck or you're playing some crazy control deck, you now have access to 3 cards that basically stop anything in the game. Like, that's absolutely crazy. Well, I guess except monster effects, but still. I think they have like Solemn Warning at 3, and then they have like Solemn Strike at like 2 or something. It's some weird like combination that they have. But 3 Judgment, man, that's a pretty big one. And then I think this might be the last one. It's Ceasefire. Again, like this card, like no one plays this card, like maybe Burn, but like no one has played Ceasefire since like, I can't, like 2005, like I don't even know, so it's like whatever. So that's gonna wrap it up for this video. Overall, I think it's a pretty impactful list. Like they're kind of doing a hard reset of everything. Sky Striker didn't really get hit at all on this list, but the thing is Sky Striker was already losing popularity in the OCG anyway, so kind of just hitting the other decks in Mermaid, or excuse me, in Orcust, Salamangreat, and Thunder was kind of a way to like check everything. So I'm really curious to see how the OCG format progresses from this. And again, it'll be interesting to see when we get our list, because we're not expected to get a list until after July, and that's after all the big tournaments have concluded anyway. So it'll be kind of interesting to see if we follow suit with some of these decisions to kind of give us a little bit of a hard reset, hopefully to Sky Striker especially, but we'll just have to wait and see. So guys, that's gonna do it for the video. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about the OCG's ban list and what implications you might think it has for the TCG. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always, subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content, and if you found this video informative, consider supporting me on Patreon or becoming a YouTube channel member, because just by showing your support in any way that you can, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.